This is Nat with the Other Side Nursery. Today we are going to be repotting this Sarracenia into this pot over here. So the pot is not that much bigger, but since I'm going to make a division out of this low rhizome over here, it doesn't really matter too much today. So yeah, the reason why you need to repot is, of course, if it overgrows like this, if the material is decaying too long. This one over here, it went into this pot when it was probably like, let me see, I don't really have anything to show, but it was significantly smaller. It could have just been like one rhizome worth of plant, like just this over here. This is probably about 3 years old now inside this pot. The plant itself might be about 5 years old, but as you can see, it is clearly time to repot. So what you would need: new pot, of course, plant. Optional would be a knife or some sort of serrated blade, just to kind of divide up and open up a little bit, but that's not always necessary. And of course, potting media. For the most part, this is half peat moss, half perlite. Sometimes people add sand in it. Sometimes people use cocoa. I don't know how to say the word coir, C-O-I-R, or C-I-O, whatever. That mix. But this is half peat moss, half perlite. And keep in mind, with most carnivorous plants, you do want to use potting material that doesn't have any kind of fertilizer or mineral or anything extra in it. You just want it to hold moisture, and that's pretty much it, because fertilizer or minerals can burn the plant. So first things first, you want to take this plant out. You can cut the pot, but I do actually like these pots. They don't really make these pots anymore. I just wash it and reuse it, so I want to save that. But yeah, you can cut the pot just to make sure you don't break any rhizome, but these are pretty easy. So you can just kind of slip it out like that. See how it warped that pot? And now you have something that looks like this. What you can start doing is plucking out weeds if you have weeds growing in there, which I definitely, oh, that startled me. So whatever this thing is, I don't think is part. So I've never actually seen anything like that before. It looks like it could be part of the Sarracenia, but I'll see after I take this part off. To me, it looks like weeds, or sometimes squirrels will bury random seeds in there, and that's when you get stuff like that. But this is kind of strange to me, just because nothing in here looks like it would produce that kind of root. So I'm wondering if these are Sarracenias that are actually growing downward and trying to push up. So let's actually see that. Like I said, I'm just pulling this here. If you are concerned with pulling and breaking, you can use a knife just to kind of locate, or sorry, first you want to locate the rhizome, so you can kind of squeeze it. It'll feel like a big branch, maybe about as thick as a finger. When you feel it, you can cut it. Make sure you try to get a lot of the rhizome. You don't want to go too close to the new growth point, because it'll cause it to, you're not going to get enough root. So you just want like maybe 1 or 2 years back. This is this year, and it probably moved from here last year, and then this is a few years ago. So as you can see, pinch it to feel that there's a rhizome there, and then you can kind of wiggle it out. But what I think this white thing is a new growth point. Whoops. That's trying to, that grew the wrong way. Yeah, it is. Oh, this is a worm. Yeah, it's a growth point that's trying to push the wrong way up, but that's okay. It's trying its best. I don't want to say it's succeeding yet, but in a few months it should push its way up. There you go. Look at that. I rarely ever see something like this, but whenever I see it, it's kind of interesting. But usually when I see it, it's already turning green at the top. I don't really see it at this stage. So that's kind of interesting. Either way, you can see this over here growing downward, and this happens because this pot was too small. So the new growth point couldn't find it. It's almost like an ingrown hair. So, oh, whoops, I broke it. But I don't think I would have kept it anyway. I think I would have just broken it off. But either way, it's almost like an ingrown hair where it can't find its way up, so it pushes its way down, and then it's like, oh wait, this way is up. So yeah, there's that. So that's kind of an interesting one. But either way, back to this one. Just kind of pluck out extra weeds, moss. If you want to save the moss, that's fine, but moss will be everywhere. You're going to get a whole bunch of moss, especially when you're dealing with water plants, or marginal plants, I should say, such as Sarracenias. I'm just plucking out, and since this is late June, I'm not going to be stripping the roots out much, just because that would be an early spring activity when there's no active growth yet. Right now, if I do all that, it will completely stunt the plant for the year. But doing this, it'll probably stunt the plant for the year anyway, but at least it's not going to be too dramatic of a stunt where it can't figure itself out by the end of the season. So yeah, early spring I would strip a lot more than this, but this is, well, technically how many days from summer? Like 3-4 days from the official beginning of summer. But yeah, I'm just gonna leave it like this. Once again, you can strip all of the soil out, but there's no reason to, so I'm leaving it. So now throw all the extra worms on the floor, excuse me. Now we're gonna fill this pot up. Funny story, I'm actually terrified of worms. I would never touch it without gloves. I kind of don't even like seeing them. I know there are benefits and everything, except for Asian jumping worms. Get rid of Asian jumping worms. But yeah, but I just don't like dealing with them. But my hobbies all consist of dealing with worms. So there's that. Oh yeah, so what I was doing, I was filling this up maybe halfway. You can kind of gauge by the roots over here. So yeah, these roots are actually kind of short. They are still in recovery from when my dad unknowingly chopped down all the roots without me asking him to. That was the story. But yeah, these roots are kind of small, so kind of eyeball it. So you can place it down. If it's hovering a little bit above the pot line, that's good. But I like my rhizomes up a little bit more like this, so I'm gonna add a little bit more dirt so it can prop it up. There. Okay. And what I also like doing with the square pots is facing the rhizomes to the corner so that it can grow towards the corner instead of nudging against the wall of the pot. So now that I have my height, I'll leave it over here. I'll add a little bit more around. You don't have to be too fancy about it. Just bend the pot a little bit so that it can go in, and I forgot what I was gonna say. Yeah, so bend the pot and then just put it in there. And oh yeah, I don't like these tables with holes because all the extra soil kind of falls through. I usually like to go in and scrape it up and put it back in there. So now that you have something like this, you get water and you water it, and I'll be back with water. So you just kind of water it. Make sure you shake it so that the soil kind of works its way in between the roots. If you don't shake it, then sometimes soil just remains there without, without going into the roots. So let's see. All right. So I'm just squeezing it so that it can work its way. And then now, birds are fighting. So now, before I add more, see how it created extra room for me to add soil. I'll add the extra soil. And then shake. One thing I forgot to mention is that it's probably wise before you move plants around to like indicate somehow that it's whichever way it's facing, because I like to put tags right in front where the sun, towards the south. So for me, this is east, this is west, north would be this way, and then south would be this way. I just have the plant tag on the south side just so I know. So I know how to put the plant back there. But of course, I forgot to mention that, and I forgot to do that, so this plant will probably end up burning on one side. But that's okay, because with Sarracenias, they are completely fine if they burn on one side. The new pitchers will grow out just fine. Another way you can kind of sort of tell would be if your plant is red, would be which side is more red. And the side that's more red is probably the side that faces south. In this case, this is extra, by the way, you don't have to deal with this. But see how this side is less red than this? That means this side is probably getting more sun. So I'll assume the side is south, the side that was facing south. So I'm just gonna put my tag on there so I know how to place it back into the bog. But of course, if it burns, oh well, it'll grow back just fine again. With this one, I'm just gonna put it in another pot, probably not this one. But yeah, afterward, just make sure you place your plant back into water. I should say your Sarracenia back into water. Keep it pretty wet, keep it very wet, I should say. If you have any questions, please give me a call or just email me at info@theothersidenursery. Thank you very much.